Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Atavistia, Cosmic Warfare, out April 21st on Blood Blast distribution. This album has 6 tracks, 49 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are a Canadian epic melodic death metal band. From a design point of view, this album is very dynamic. They are a band that they're able to create songs that are mini journeys. Each track is its own journey, each track offers its own path. Now it's about how you put them together in a way that allows that path to not just be interrupted or resetted with every single track, but rather somehow find a way of continuing it from song to song. This is perhaps the album where they found that balance a little bit better considering what they've done in the previous records. I really like how the album starts. Omega Nova, it's the perfect introduction to the record. It's an intro track that allows you to see a little bit of what the atmosphere, of what the sound, of what the mood of this album is going to be all about. And then finishing off with Forgotten Silence, a song that has the right attributes to close off the record. In between, you see a lot of movement within the songs, but you also see somewhat of a path opening up between the tracks. This makes the album more dynamic, this makes the album more fluid, even though when you look at it at first glance, it feels like a very compact, very condensed record. And it is. But that doesn't mean that the album doesn't offer ebbs and flows. That doesn't mean that the album is not engaging. That doesn't mean that the album is not dynamic. This record is all of the above. It's a record that on one side it feels very compact and on the other it feels very volatile. And I really love this design because it allows songs that have so much to give, that have those inner journeys in them, feel a lot shorter because time just flies by when you're enjoying yourself and when you're traveling with the song and within the song, and then finding a way to connect these tracks, or at least find a better path for them to allow the listener to never have to reset, makes the overall experience a lot more pleasurable. As far as the sound is concerned, this record continues what the previous 2 albums have done. They're not reinventing the wheel, they're not becoming a black metal band. This record perhaps offers 2 new elements, or at least it redefines 2 elements that were there before, but puts them a little bit more in the forefront. This is definitely more of a symphonic record. The orchestrations on this album play a much bigger role than what they've played in the past, even though they were there in the past and they always had an important role in the sound. I honestly felt like on this record they pushed the element not just into this epic soundscape, but also a very symphonically driven soundscape. The other aspect of the sound on this record that I felt was different from previous albums is that this is a much darker album all around. This is not to say that there aren't pockets of light, that there aren't pockets of melody that open the doors, open the windows and let the sun shine in. Obviously that's going to be there, but in previous records I never felt like the darkness of the album dictated the mood or the atmosphere of the tracks. And on this record I really feel that way towards it. A lot of the times the darkness just kind of comes to the surface and almost controls the overall experience surrounding the song from a musical point of view, but also from a vocal standpoint. And that is something different, that is something new. And for a band like them, where they followed a very similar path from record to record, it's always important to add new elements or change elements that were there already and just better defining them. And having these 2 jump into the forefront, the darkness of the record and the more symphonic push, or the more direct impact that the symphonic elements and orchestrations have on the album, are definitely 2 additions that makes this a more dense sounding album, but also a more epic overall volume and substance into that epicness that makes this an album with a lot more to digest, with a lot more layers to peel, with a lot more texture sound into it. And the orchestrations obviously play a huge role in that. I enjoy them a lot on this album, perhaps more than on previous records, because they had more of a purpose, they had more of a direction. And I'm not saying that they didn't have a purpose before, they obviously always have a purpose. But on this record, because of the symphonic push and the darkness that the album has, the overall orchestrations played really well into that atmosphere. They played really well into how you feel towards the songs. Not just about creating sound, not just about creating experience, but creating something that makes you feel something towards it. That is really important with any record. You have to feel the music. And I felt like the orchestrations on this album really allow the record to breathe a lot better. It gave it more of an impact. It created more of a sense of purpose, like I said, creating a focus for the listener. And that makes that sound blend in a lot better with everything else around it and not necessarily cover it all up with a very thick blanket. Now, as far as the drums are concerned, I enjoy the power that they have. They are very powerful on this album, but not overly powerful to the point where they're drowning out other elements. I actually felt that perhaps the drums could have had a little bit more oomph. They could have had a little bit more bass in them. It wouldn't have hurt the overall experience. Actually, perhaps would have hurt in terms of the density that the album has, because it's already dense, and that may have made it a little bit more dense. But I think he had room for it. There was an ability to add it without hurting it. It's not the case, and that doesn't take anything away from them, because I still felt like they were powerful enough to have an impact, to create an impact, and really give some heaviness to the tracks where you really feel the thundering drums coming towards you. Now, the guitars have a great sound, from the more melodic to the acoustic to the heavy. It's always a very dynamic element of their records, of their sound, this one being no different. I just felt like the blend of the guitar sound with the orchestrations was perhaps better and more consistent on this album than the two previous records. There's not as much of a gap between one and the other. The way that those two elements intertwine from the beginning all the way to the end gave that sense of density to the sound, but it also gave a sense of consistency to that same sound. The vocals are phenomenal. I love the style, I love the approach. It's a little bit of Insiferum, it's a lot of Winter Sun, and I enjoy this dynamic. I enjoy the clean vocals that add to the epic essence of the tracks. I enjoy the harsher vocals that add heaviness, that bring the mood down, the more screaming style that brings a different feel, that adds movement to how the songs go. It's just a very well put together album vocally. It has all the right momentums, it has all the right elements. It's the perfect vocal delivery and vocal range for an album that sounds like this. Another consistent record from Atavistia, but a record that I see growth considering where they were in the two previous records. Perhaps a little bit more growth also in the mixing, in the production, but definitely growth in terms of what they want from their sound and how they can use the same elements that were there before, but get something different out of them. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I will start off with Spectral Rebirth. Great guitar sound on this track, very dynamic, moving from the more gritty sound to the melodic, to the heavy, offering a lot of different soundscapes guitar-wise that gives the song quite a bit of energy. The orchestrations add a lot of volume to the overall sound experience. The harsh vocals bring heaviness to the song as well, or at least add more consistency to that heaviness. And then you have the drums. The drums always powerful, matching up really well with the guitar sound, creating a lot of thickness in the overall experience and how the sound comes across. An epic sounding track, because it's a track that at times it feels very compact, but it never stays very compact for very long because it expands. It doesn't lose anything in the density of the volume, in the density of the sound. It just makes it bigger. It just makes the track bigger. It just gives it more energy, moves it into that epic stratosphere of style and approach. And then when you add some folky elements to the sound and the vocals to go along with it, you're throwing in a nice little caveat that makes the song feel a lot more dynamic and not just one-dimensional. I really enjoy this track because of everything that it has, how it's put together, and the energy that it gives. Next, Divine Destruction, a wall of sound. This track really feels like a wall of sound coming at you. You can see the melody that the track has, but the heaviness really overpowers it at times, and that wall of sound is just a perfect example of it. A track that uses a narrator-style vocal approach. A track that uses orchestrations with backing vocals. A track that uses the dark elements of the vocal range to define where you are. A track that uses clean vocal moments in order to better understand where the song is trying to take you. Super, super, super dynamic song vocally. A lot of the darkness that this song has comes from the vocals. The vocals have an impact in that darkness and how that darkness then impacts the sound, not the other way around. It's a track that has bright moments, but it also has very dark moments. It's a song that's extremely dynamic musically and vocally. It always feels like it's going from 0 to 100, back to 0, back to 100. It's moving all over the place. It has beauty in its most darkness moments, and you can find beauty in death, and this song is a little bit of that. Anytime something dies, there's a sense of rebirth. This song has that hidden element to it, that there is beauty in death, that there is beauty in darkness, that there's beauty in things that you don't understand, that you can't comprehend, or that you're trying to comprehend, or perhaps reset around yourself. This track has all of those elements in the sound, in the vocal performance, in the overall approach. Last but not least, the closing track of this album, Forgotten Silence. This is the perfect closing song. It feels that way in terms of what it offers. It has bombastic elements that give this the great finale. This is not a track that ends itself on a cliffhanger. This is not an album that ends itself on a cliffhanger. This is an album that ends on an exclamation mark, and this song is that exclamation mark. It's a very bombastic track all around, from the vocal range to the vocal arrangements to the musical arrangements, how the song navigates, the construction of the track, heavy, big, massive, thundering drums, incredible dynamics, incredible movement up and down, constantly moving, constantly changing, bringing in some Flesh God Apocalypse vibes in terms of how the orchestrations are infused into this song, allowing you to feel a little bit more of a classic element that only a band or bands like Septic Flesh, Flesh God Apocalypse can really pull it off. This song has a lot of that, but then it still has that more classic melodic death metal sound to it. So it's a track that has a lot of moving pieces, or that brings influences from different parts, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which influences are coming in. The point is the same, is to make this song as big, as epic, as bombastic, as volatile as possible, so you can have the album closing off on a bang bang and not necessarily, like I said, on a cliffhanger. This is it, Atavistia with Cosmic Warfare, out April 21st on Blast distribution. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.